It's pretty personal and emotional, much less about a good investment and a lot more about how it will feel to live with that art. I work a lot with interior designers, so we're talking a lot about the aesthetics of a home, but also your lifestyle within that home and how the art will inform that and dictate the space. I did not even really know a job that people held. It was something that I kind of came to out of curiosity. I've been in the arts for a decade or so, so I've been adjacent to this, but it was never something I really intentionally sought out. It really came from curiosity and seeing a need and just kind of exploring that. Really is a pretty creative act to me. It feels very intuitive. I find art for somebody that I think will touch on, then there's their personality and their values and the mood that they want it to, evoke. I feel like with AI and everything being really automated, we will really start to value the narrative behind pieces and who made how you came to it.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. And I have an amazing new guest on the episode today. I'm joined by the wonderful art curator, there's so many things I have around what you really do. So I'm going to let the introduction, Delia, to yourself. Welcome to the podcast, Delia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Delia, how would you introduce yourself?
It's actually really tricky. I call myself an art consultant, but that is immediately followed with a question of what an art consultant actually is. So I need a better term. I'm open to hearing people's ideas for that, but generally I call myself an art consultant because I am curating in people's homes, but I really feel like I am a guide to people and I'm there to be a support along the journey. And consultant feels like the closest word to what I'm actually doing. Instead of just selecting work for clients, I'm really trying to guide and support them in that. So I call myself an art consultant, but
art consultant and also somebody who curates collections for people. So you're also, one who's also curating that. It's not only a financial advice or like a advice on what's the right buy or what's not the right buy. Am I right?
yes, absolutely. It's pretty personal and emotional, much less about like a good investment and a lot more about how it will feel to live with that art. I work a lot with interior designers, so we're talking a lot about like the aesthetics of a home, but also your lifestyle within that home and how the art will inform that and dictate the space. So.
You were ever interested in the arts or maybe thought yourself as an artist ever? This is a question I really love asking people who are, remotely also in the art world.
I think I did consider myself an artist. I don't really have an arts practice and I have never tried to make it a professional component of my life, but I've certainly always felt creative and had, various writing and visual arts practices that I've explored. I think that it feels, yeah, it's been a part of my life, but it has never been this like driving force to really create a lot of art. It's an outlet.
So what brought you here then? Okay. I'm sure. I mean, we all have our ways of expressing our creativity, and your curation, your canvas is made up of multiple canvases that our artists are producing. So, but again, we are all creating in our own ways, right? Tell me something. Did you ever think of yourself where you are today, like consulting, curating for artists? Is that a career or an industry you always intended to work, or have you found yourself here? How has your journey been? Like, where did you come from?
It was definitely an organic thing. I did not even really know that this was a job that people held. It was something that I kind of came to out of curiosity. I've been in the arts for a decade or so. So I've been adjacent to this, but it was never something I really intentionally sought out. It really came from curiosity and seeing a need and just kind of exploring that however I could to get here. It was definitely not something I even knew existed as a career path. It really came about because of a lot of curiosity and seeing a need and just sort of exploring different ways of engaging audiences in the arts. So I was running a nonprofit arts organization prior to doing this, and we created paid platforms for emerging artists, which was wonderful work. But I felt like it was it wasn't a very holistic approach. It was like these singular opportunities. And I just got really curious about ways that we could more holistically or foundationally support artists. And I observed how many people are almost art averse, like really not comfortable in art spaces and don't interact with the arts in the way that I feel like we all could benefit from. And I just got very curious about why that is and what the discomfort is that people have around art and how I could be a bridge to the arts for those people. And stepped down from that nonprofit, did a bunch of iterating around what that would look like and how I could, structure a business around that, and landed on art consulting. And I do pretty much exclusively residential art consulting.
Art
And a part of that
consulting.
is that I feel like I'm have these much more emotional and meaningful conversations with clients.
How was the first few? Can you recall a story about meeting artists? Or also even I feel like you're also like a matchmaker, like, finding the right artist, the right home, the right, it's like it's it's really like for artists also it really matters. I think getting the sale is one part, but then really where the magic is like sending something that you've really made with a lot of love, but it's also not love. As artists, we really process a lot of emotions, stories, and stories we want to tell. And those stories, when, we find people that who want to receive or hear those kind of stories, you will know, I'm sure you will know. The right home, it's like, how do I say it? It's like it's like if you find a taking this analogy because I love animals, but like a dog finds the right home, and like when you rescue and you're like, oh my god, this is the perfect family because they're going to be taken so much well cared for. So like when you find the right home, it's not an object for them, it's something that you're really really going to cherish. So like I'm really curious on how how were the first few encounters like looking finding artists, and then knowing that, okay, this is a good match and they would come together, or like, how does it work for you? Even in the mind, I'm not interested, like, logistically, we all know, okay, you go find art, that's a buyer. But like, what goes inside your head when all of that's happening?
I mean, you kind of touched on this earlier, but it really is a pretty creative act to me. It feels very intuitive. I feel like it's this, like, I don't know, it's a very enjoyable, fun, creative process for me to go find art for somebody that I think will touch on all these different levels, because there's a visual level, but then there's their personality and their values and the mood that they want it to, evoke, and there's budget and dimensions and all of these components, subject matter, personal narrative. And when you can find something that hits all of those, it's really a pretty, like, it feels like a very intuitive, magical experience to some extent. And I feel like I'm able to do that. I get pretty deep with clients and try to just really pull out these different threads of what really matters to them. I think that, you know, I don't know that we necessarily feel that confident talking about what we want in an art piece unless you're already an art collector. And so it's been an interesting translation process almost to really try to pull out what is it exactly that they're looking for. And yeah, it feels quite, it's like a very intuitive, creative process for me when I find the right piece. And sometimes it takes a long time. I mean, it really, it can be difficult to translate what they are looking for into searchable terms and to really land on the right thing. And I think it just makes it that much more rewarding when we actually do find a piece that's really hitting all of those levels.
Yeah. What gaps do you find in the industry? Because we all know it's not an easy part, like, um, the mindset of collectors, the mindset of artists, both. Um, what do you feel are the challenges here and learnings for all of us in your experience you've had so far? This is a call for artists worldwide, sponsored by Arts to Hearts Project, an international community of over 100,000 artists and a modern day publisher in the arts.
They're now accepting submissions for Artist of the Year 2025 edition, an open call for painters, sculptors, photographers, digital and mixed media artists, and more. It's a publication opportunity with cash awards and global recognition in the arts. This could be the breakthrough you've been waiting for. To learn about eligibility, themes, and all details, head to arts2heartsproject.com. But don't wait too long. This opportunity closes in December 1st, 2025.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on who we're talking to. I feel that collectors need a lot of um I don't know, it's a very overwhelming art market. So a lot of support figuring out how to engage with it, how to talk about it, how to interpret art, how to appreciate it. Like that is not taught in American culture. And I think in a lot of different cultures, there's really
Absolutely.
no
I think in
arts.
America, it's still more accessible. Like, I think across a lot of different
Do you?
cultures, yeah, absolutely. I think, like born and brought up in India, I think we have a lot of appreciation for crafts because that's where our heart lies. But like,
Mhm.
collect is a very different way of, like, having arts in a very different way. Consumption of that level is very different.
Yeah. And then on the artist side, like to get really granular, I feel like there are so many challenges with an artist, unless you really find a niche and specify who you're making art for, if that's a museum curator or a gallerist or a private collector, you really have this big challenge of how you are presenting your work and how you can, ultimately get to whatever that goal is. And it's different. If you're a private buyer who's shopping online, it's a very different way of presenting your portfolio than if you're trying to get
Yeah,
into group shows or solo shows. And that is a huge challenge for artists to figure out how
yeah.
they're relaying information basically and how they can build meaningful
Hmm.
connections, trust with collectors, present their work in a compelling way. It's tough. So there are a lot of challenges for sure.
Hmm. Nice. What do you think? I remember watching one of your reels, where you said like the world of collecting is changing, and I commented that, you know, I also feel very similar. I feel like collections from now on would be far more original. People are far more. I think we all have started to have far more unique taste, and people are just not buying for the sake of numbers and market. What's your experience? Let's also talk about this side of the art world. What are your observations and patterns you're noticing, and while you meet collectors every day and people, what kind of art people are pleased with? What is the mindset of the collectors? What kind of age of collectors are you working with at the moment? Because, the early age collectors now that we are, and, more seasoned collectors, like, let's talk about that. What's your wisdom with that?
I think that there are a lot of shifts, and I think there are a lot of reasons why we are shifting. I feel like we are not quite fully seeing this, but I do think that with AI and everything being really automated, I'm hoping, and I think I'm starting to see it. We will really start to value the narrative behind pieces. And like when
Yeah.
everything is mass produced or machine, you really want to
Hmm.
tell the story of who made it, how you came to it. And like we are going
Hmm.
to move more and more towards that as
Hmm.
this meaningful thing where we connect with
Yeah.
another person. We have imperfections. We have all of these like really human components that we get to share about the art that we buy or objects that we buy. I think it'll spill out in a lot of different industries. I also think that, I think this is a little bit of a generational thing. Like, I think millennials and younger generations have more of a focus on like value driven things, social impact, collecting around social issues. They want these more meaningful and socially connected aspects of the work that they're buying. And that's not to say that other generations weren't interested in that. I just think that we are having like a larger swell towards that and paying attention to, you know, like what statements are being made around those pieces of art. What does it signal? And I don't mean like virtue signaling, but what of your deep priorities and values can your art relay and signal outwardly? Um, I think that we are generationally seeing that shift. I also think that, I mean, I think increasingly art feels more and more accessible, and people are starting to shift away from this really elitist and academic way of
Yeah.
talking about art, and
Mm,
that shifts who gets to
mm,
select art and how legitimized they are at that. And
mm.
I think that's a little bit slow, but I
I
seeing it. I
do.
feel like
Yeah.
more museums are kind of downshifting in that way.
I think that's also has a lot to do with,
Are
like,
you?
I think there's also a shift in the sense of, if you see, first artists embraced social media, and it became easier and easier for people to find artists. Like, we all look at artists every day now and artworks. Though I have a lot of conflicting views about that. I think as much as it's made art accessible, it's also really diluted and pressurized artists to um, I think it's also diluted the way art is presented in the, like, preserving the sense of the makers. I think there's a line that's now, on a very blending area, but it still benefits every day, no doubt about that. The other thing I feel like over the time, I've also seen, like, I've seen really the most, traditional ones also. Traditional galleries, museums, they're all going back on social media more than ever every year because, there was some kind of elitism I saw like over the few years before that. And, there would be this this prestige that they would really not give into it. But then I've started to see now they understand that how potential this tool has and how important it is uh to, if we're not talking about trends, but we're also talking about sharing their own information, that promoting their artist, creating a voice for their artist, or things like that. So I think why that also, like, mm, the veil is being lifted because it's once the artists become accessible, the galleries become accessible, even collectors become accessible. I was with Sonia, I think the episode before that or once before that. Amazing, amazing. I think I really enjoyed. She's wonderful. But just the energy because, there's this facade for artists because how does the collector look like? Like, a serious collector specifically who works in really, high prestige works and artists and blue chip galleries and all of those things. But then, when you listen to someone like Sonia, you're like, they're just so passionate, like, just about the
Mhm.
art and, the artist. And they want to believe in something. They really want to be a part of something. And I really resonated with the reel that I said. Like you said, like, people want to be invited and artists, collectors want to be a part. They also want to join the conversation and say, oh, I really believe not in this artist or artwork also, but what it says and stands for. It's like a statement.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I loved that episode with Sonia. It was a great
Mm,
perspective. I really quite enjoyed that one.
yeah.
I think with the social media, it's tough, but I think the one thing that social media can really do for artists is it builds in a way that a website just doesn't really, or even a
Yeah.
gallery representation doesn't. Social media can build this narrative of who you are as an artist and this whole like world around the art that you're creating, where we get to see your process in a way that we typically don't see process. So
True.
as a collector, you out in this it's really interesting. You understand more about the emotional state that someone is creating art in or about their inspiration. Like it's all these very cool background layers that I do think if you do your social media well, it can really create this
Yeah.
distinction for you as an artist that people will remember your videos or your
Mm,
overall presence or how it comes across
mm,
separate from your portfolio, which I think it's tough, but there are so many artists and it is really hard to differentiate. And, unless you're really getting a lot of, critics writing about you and a lot of attention, it's really hard to build your own
hard.
name and your artistic voice. I
Yeah.
think social media can do that to some extent.
Yeah.
But
That's true.
uh, yeah, but I agree with you. It has its challenges.
Yeah. Oh, I think Both ways. When we find a lot of artists online, speak to them, reach out, look at so much art. I think when I'm on the looking side, there's also a lot of fatigue. Um,
Uh-huh.
there's also, as much as we like looking at creative process and etc., there's also at some point a lot of things start to look similar. Because social media is also a place of trends. Um,
Uh-huh.
I think it's also as we've reached a point where there's so much of noise that there's some kind of retraction from it. And I think even as an artist, um, I truly believe because we all have our ways to battle and things to pick. And I feel like there's a huge difference between content creators and artists, and how artists sharing their work is a very different perspective. But artists require to become content creators and their work becomes the content. I think that I find as an artist myself very troublesome, very troublesome because it
I'm
deviates.
completely with you.
Yeah. Hmm. You do?
Oh, two things. One, I remember a year ago or something, I was watching something on TikTok, and it was this artist who was talking about how this video went like completely viral, like so many views,
Okay.
and she didn't get a single sale from it at all. And I think that
Absolutely.
there is, a lot of pressure to be a content creator, and I don't know that it's necessary. I think that it really does take you away to some extent. What I do think is necessary is that you have some kind of presence on there, even if it's not
Yeah.
being regularly updated. But it's your
Yeah.
second website, really. So people go to
Yeah.
your website and they go to your social media, and your social media they go to see these behind the scenes components and a deeper understanding of who you are and how you make art and why you make art. And I don't think those have to be beautifully done. They don't need to be highly entertaining. They don't have to be trendy, but they can offer insights in a way that, you know, is authentic to how you are actually making art and doesn't detract from it. And but it's really challenging. I think there's a lot of pressure for people to be content creators and to feel like they have
Yeah.
a
And
perfect
I think
Instagram
it's,
presence.
yeah. And I think the more and more I'm also speaking to people, I see that contradiction where um, there's exhaustion because I think a lot of I think it's also not putting everybody in the same box. A lot of artists really do enjoy, sharing, but a lot of us really don't. And, and sometimes a lot of us feel forced, or there's also this fear of missing out in the generation and time we live in because, as artists, we're all already trying so many things, and it's like basketball, the ones only that go in that basket, and you're like, you don't want to miss your chances, and you're like, and people are trying everything and they don't want to leave it out. And that's when we also look for artists, we also see really different kind of artists. And I think with different projects, also different kind of artists work in. So, we'd find artists on our covers who have millions and millions of reach. And then we also work with artists um, who are really, really, some people I just love, love. Okay. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I could hear you.
Perfect. Oh. So some people just I really love some work that I really love, and it's not like the artist would post every day or would have like a really big profile. But there's this the love for work and just not the love for artist. Like it's both ways, and it's tricky. It's not really black and white. But I also feel like the more we move forward, um, it's getting harder. It's really getting harder. It's called also getting pressurizing for a lot of artists. And like you said, very
Yeah,
truly,
absolutely.
a million followers may not mean a million sales, or even one for that matter. But it does. I've also had
Yeah.
friends and people who've also been on the podcast who are artists. Them I remember, like my friend Haley, who is an excellent artist, who started off with social media. Today, she really um, she makes these wonderful videos which are focused around her paintings and all. It's like a storytelling skills. So she's also developed another skill is which is videography and video storytelling, and she's really excellent with it, and she has a huge following. But again, it's something that's not a fit for everybody, that not everybody can do or want to do
It's really
actually.
comes it comes back to me to thinking about what your end goal is. And if that feels
Yeah,
like an avenue for you to get audience, you're sort of enjoying the content creation, that's great. It can be really successful, but it doesn't have to be this huge part of your day or your week, in my opinion. And I mean, I think we probably share this, but I work with a lot of independent, outsider emerging artists who don't have a big audience and don't have a big traction. And that doesn't really matter to me. I think it's obviously about your work and your professionalism and how, you know, I don't know how it feels. And I think that your social media presence can just be one avenue in, and it doesn't have to be this incredible time suck for you or a creative suck in any way. I think it's just, I mean, this is a really simple example, but I've seen a lot of artists on social media and they don't have a website linked. They don't have their gallery representation linked. They don't have contact information. Like I can't go anywhere to buy their artwork. And that is the
gotcha.
simplest thing. It doesn't have anything to do with their portfolio is. It's like, unfortunately, and this is another thing, but artists are running a business. And I feel like a lot
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
artists don't they yeah, and it's hard. I mean, it's really a lot of pressure on artists. I really sympathize with how many different things they have to juggle in order to make one thing
Absolutely.
work. And it's very yeah, things like having your social media linked to your website is the easiest thing to make that social media functional. It doesn't have to be incredible content.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How do you find artists? What's your favorite way? And what do you look at artists like um, when you're finding artists? What are you looking for? How do you identify this is somebody I would work with? Is this person I can place with?
I am constantly looking for artists, so I'm really all across the board. I look at social media, I look at online like artist marketplaces. I read a lot of arts newsletters, consume a ton of arts media. So I'm constantly looking for new artists. I also,
Hmm.
if I have a project looking for something specific, I will search for that specific thing that I'm looking for and come across all sorts of artist websites. And I have a pretty big database of artists that I keep just to try to organize it all because I'm really encountering, dozens of
Hmm.
artists a day, really. What
Hmm.
I'm looking for, I I don't have any I don't represent artists and I don't keep inventory
Yeah.
and I'm really trying
Yeah.
to that really resonates with the client. So I feel like what I'm looking for is salience, something that feels like it's jumping out to me, that it has some quality to it that has resonance. And even if it's not my personal style or, subject
Hmm.
matter that I connect to, I feel like it has some quality to it that is pulling my attention. It feels like good art to me, and I will either send that to a client or put it in my database for a future client. And I think that really ranges what it looks like. And I'm working across all mediums, so it's really it's an it's an unnamed quality to a work of art that I feel like
Hmm.
will grab my attention and um,
Hmm.
yeah, be something that I want to show someone else. What are you looking
Nice.
for?
Do you have as someone who's so I have a very specific I feel like um as an artist I have a very specific taste, and when I collect, um I really, because my roots lie in crafts. I've been brought up in India, a culture of colors. Um, I I really, and I have a very deep passion for womanhood, women experiences, women stories, and I love animals. So I've always seen myself. I have collected over the years art that's rural, that I really love layers, textures, textiles. That's something I think my extension of, as someone who collects, is an extension of the artist I am. Something that is stems from the same idea, because I'm not typically somebody who would. I like I like maximalism. Like I really like that. And like if let's say if I'm going to Mexico, and I will often find myself in places. Where I can find history of those places, where like vintage and somebody who's carrying forward some kind of stories that come from. I'm very interested in mythology, not only from where I come, but different belief systems, how women look in different cultures. So I think I've over the years seen that a lot of my taste develop in my own interest. Like objects, I love paintings of objects that, speak to us as women, as whatever. Like I think I like nostalgia, like some a very typical millennial kind of it. I'm not this um minimal abstract, because I have always been surrounded by. I love patterns, I love people who have like. I love art pieces who have cultural references from who they are, where they come from, and I think I really like, really enjoy that. So, like you said,
Yeah,
even though when we collect, like, we all have a taste.
yeah, absolutely. I I like that you wove two components in, like this personal narrative and how you're sharing your own values and your own identity and things that matter. But also, I mean, you didn't quite say this, but I'm guessing because it's drawn from your own art practice, there is an element of like inspiration or fueling creative thought that art really can do for us,
Yeah,
that we, can live with, that prompts further art making, and that prompts more creative thinking and cognitive
yeah,
flexibility and all of these things that art
yeah,
is doing for us subtly in the background.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, it's also so I remember, so I even like I really like you said, also buying art that you would want to live with, like um, that you want to commit to, and you feel like this is not something we like a lot of things. I really would like a lot of things, but I may only like them for a certain period, and I know this is something that I wouldn't commit to my life. Like now I'm at an age and time, like I know this something. This is never fading out. This is like really me. So that is the commitment, but also like when I gift somebody a piece of art or a painting or something, for me it really needs to tell a story. If for example, I remember in middle of COVID, I gave one of my friend. He's obsessed with trains, and he's an entrepreneur and very close to me. And um, he's often talking about, entrepreneurship is a very, very lonely journey. We all know that, like, no matter as artists or businesses, whatever we run, if you're running a business, it's full of challenges. It often gets lonely. Um, and even a creative career is very lonely, I feel like, and the time that we're living in specifically, we have a very different relationship what being alone means, because we're amongst people, and then also we are lonely. And a lot of times while we're sitting alone, and even then we're not lonely. Like, so I gifted him um a painting I found in artist from India, and there was this man sitting on a railway station, which is very typical Indian classic 90s railway station, and there's a train coming across. And the moment I looked at that art, I was like, this is him. And I gave it to him, and it's been years now that I gave. It's right opposite his desk, and he says, if there was fire happening, I would not even pick up my laptop. I would just pick up that painting, because every day I look at it, and it's like it's speaking to me. So I feel like that is so magical. Like, it's so magical. Like, it's magic. What is, I don't know how to put it.
It really is magical. I feel like I hear a lot of people ask what would happen if they get sick of art that they buy. It's like a really big fear that people have that prevents them from buying art, I think. And to me, it's
Okay.
such a choice in so many ways. It's like you really get to build a relationship with that work of art and let it inform your day. And, that's now a part of his work life in some way. And he has built this connection with that work of art that continues to evolve. It's not static at all. It shifts as he shifts and evolves. And I think that art is so much more alive than we think it is. We feel like it's this like decor
Yeah.
choice that we're going to get sick of. It really ages
Yeah.
with you. I mean, you might need to update frame, but the art is going to age with you if you have
Yeah.
a real connection to it. I mean, even if
Yeah.
it's not the most resonant 2 decades down the line, it's a part of who you were and what did matter to you. And you can really
Yeah.
love it for that and have this continually growing relationship with that work.
And you know what? After my mom's passing, I think I've realized how objects are not objects. I don't have a house. One of my goal is still to buy a house for myself. But even though I don't have, and I keep joking this around with my friends, and if they gift me something and I buy, and I tell them, you know what, I have everything ready. I just need a house to put things together. So even like when I look at some painting or something, and I'm like, and I love collecting Indian art, because I stayed away from home for so long, and as my own journey as an artist, and after losing my mom, I really feel like this drive to. I know, the culture we're coming from. The more we're moving forward in digital, it's fading away, and a lot of crafts are fading, a lot of artists are fading, a lot of our mythology stories. So I really love collecting them. And I have this suitcase and a bag where I have a lot of unframed artist work that I have bought them, and I've kept they are with me. One day, hoping that when I buy my house, or even if I'm gone, um, if there is anybody after me, I want them to see this. I want them to see, the kind of culture we came from, the kind of work that was being done. I hope it is still alive then. But if not, they also know who I was, the kind of, um, you know, when my mom passed away, I know who she is. But then also when I look at all of the things come together now, it's a story that I am listening, watching every day. So it's like, we're also curating our life and telling our stories while we, collecting. So I not only necessarily take a painting, but I would collect objects and like buy things that really like, they're like stitching small pieces in a narrative, and then hoping one day, if I'm not here, they will tell my story.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I like the imagery of stitching pieces together. And I think it's really true. And I think one of the things I just listened to this podcast that was talking about um, like giving away all your items before you die, basically. And a part of that giving away is telling the person that you're giving it to why it mattered to you and,
Why do
the
you?
story of when you bought it or whatever. Because then they get this piece of you instead of after
Hmm.
you die and they have to try to take from it. And I think it comes back to this like how we are living with art question or any object is having it
Hmm.
be an actual it's in our home where we are having conversations about it, where we are
Hmm.
referencing it, where we are taking and giving something to it and having it be this very alive entity. So it's something that is a part of your legacy, really, and a part of who you are that people who matter to you know what that art means to you because it's been an integrated part of your life and how you exist in your home and share outwardly who
Hmm.
you are.
I love that. Yeah, wonderful. And okay, one last question. What What is your one piece of advice for artists if they want their work to be out there? And one piece of advice who are collectors, early collectors, people have fears, but who want to invest, um, to take that leap.
Start with the collectors because it feels a little easier to me. I think to me the one thing that I wish everybody who is curious about becoming a collector would do is just to start exploring it and to feel like they are able to ask questions of artists, of gallerists, to really start to uncover what their taste is, not what the cultural taste is or the trend. And I think all of that happens just through like a process of inquiry and curiosity and just letting yourself at a very slow pace explore art and see what resonates with you and start to get curious about why and begin to identify artists or techniques or styles that are attractive to you in some way. And I think just leading with curiosity and not, I mean, it's very overwhelming and it can be very intimidating to start collecting art, and
Yeah.
just letting it be a curious exploratory process is my biggest piece of advice, I would say,
Right.
for collectors. For artists, it's a little tricky because again, I feel like there are different avenues that artists are going towards depending on what their goals are. I think if you are trying to sell to private collectors or, get your own audience of buyers, and I feel like artists won't want to hear this, but I think there is something to be said about treating it as a business and letting it be
Yeah.
something that is really accessible. That you have a
Yeah.
really good follow-up sequence with people. I think we haven't necessarily I don't hear this much conversation about this, but I feel like people buy art at a very slow pace. People take forever to purchase a work of art unless they're really
Yeah.
like really ready to buy, have a very strong feeling, and are the kind of decision maker that goes off of gut instinct. But generally speaking, people take a long time to buy works of art. And I don't see that many artists who have set up their online store or even their email newsletter to accommodate that pace, to really recognize that
Yeah.
people take a long time with art. There's trust building that has to happen. There's, understanding who the artist is, feeling a connection to it. And if artists can start to think about the business process of that in a way and like orient their outward presentation towards a buyer who might be skeptical or overwhelmed or not really know what questions to ask, and like be the guide towards that ultimate purchase. It's tough though.
Thank you so much, Julia, for your wonderful advices and your thoughts and experiences. Thank you so much for joining me, and for everybody else, thank you so much. Where can we find you, support you, and connect with you, Delia?
I am on TikTok and Instagram. You can go to my website, which is my first and last name, DeliaLaJeunesse.com. I have an email newsletter. I love getting artist portfolios. So I don't represent artists, but I am always happy to look at portfolios, and people are always welcome to email them to me. So certainly do that. And yeah, I'm really on all platforms. So anywhere that you are.
Perfect.
Thanks for having
Thank
me
you so
on. It's been
much.
really, really
Thank
lovely.
you for being here. Thank you.